The sun had barely risen over the Middle East when the first sign of trouble appeared on the radar screens. Inside a massive underground command center belonging to the United States Central Command, dozens of analysts quietly monitored hundreds of signals moving across the digital map. Most of them were normal, commercial aircraft, cargo flights, civilian routes. But one signal was different. Daniel Carter, a young radar analyst who had only joined the military 3 years earlier, noticed the strange movement first. The signal appeared for only a few seconds. Then it vanished. Daniel leaned closer to his screen. "That's odd," he whispered. He adjusted the radar filter. The signal appeared again. But this time it wasn't alone. 3 more signals suddenly appeared behind it, flying low across the Persian Gulf. Daniel immediately stood up. "Sir, I think we have unidentified aircraft entering restricted airspace." Across the room, Colonel James Walker, a veteran commander known for staying calm even in the worst situations, walked over slowly. "Show me." Daniel zoomed in. The aircraft were flying extremely low, almost skimming the water. "They're trying to avoid radar," Daniel said. Walker narrowed his eyes. "Those aren't commercial." For a few seconds the room was silent. Then the alarms suddenly sounded. Another radar station confirmed the same signals. The aircraft were approaching fast. Iranian side of the story. Far across the Gulf, inside an Iranian military command bunker, several officers watched their own radar screens carefully. General Farhad Rahimi stood behind them with his arms crossed. "This operation will prove our capability," he said confidently. Their plan was bold. Iranian forces believed they had discovered a weakness in the American defense network protecting several strategic locations in the region. If their aircraft could slip through the defense shield undetected, it would send a powerful message to the world. 4 advanced strike aircraft had already taken off. Behind them, a small fleet of fast attack boats and missile ships waited in the Gulf. Everything depended on surprise. General Rahimi smiled. The Americans won't even see them coming. But he was wrong. Very wrong. Back to the U.S. Command Center. Colonel Walker immediately gave the order. "Launch interceptors." Within seconds, alarms began echoing across several air bases in the region. Pilots rushed toward their aircraft. On one runway, 2 A-10 Thunderbolt II aircraft were already being prepared for emergency launch. Ground crews quickly loaded ammunition belts and rockets. One pilot climbed into the cockpit. "Control, this is Hawk 1. Ready for immediate departure. Cleared for takeoff." The engines roared to life. Moments later, the aircraft shot down the runway and lifted into the sky. Behind them, 2 F-18 Super Hornets also launched from a nearby carrier group in the Gulf. High above the water, the American fighters quickly climbed to intercept. Meanwhile, in the Persian Gulf, the sea looked calm from the surface. But below that calm surface, one of the most advanced naval fleets in the world was already moving. The U.S. Navy Carrier Strike Group had been quietly patrolling the region for days. At the center of the formation was the massive aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford. Surrounding it were destroyers, cruisers, and submarines. On the bridge of the destroyer USS Arleigh Burke, officers were watching the situation unfold. "Unidentified aircraft approaching defense zone," one officer reported. The captain nodded. "Activate missile defense systems." Crew members moved quickly across the ship. Radar systems locked onto the approaching targets. Missile launch systems rotated into position. The moment everything changed. High above the Gulf, the Iranian aircraft were flying in tight formation. Their pilots believed they had successfully slipped past the early warning radar. One of them spoke over the radio. "We are approaching the target area." But suddenly, a warning alarm screamed inside the cockpit. Radar lock detected. The pilot's heart dropped. American fighters. Within seconds, 2 F-18 Super Hornets appeared on the horizon. Behind them, the A-10 Thunderbolts were closing in fast. The American pilots made their message clear. "This is United States military aircraft. You are entering restricted airspace. Change course immediately." For a moment, the Iranian pilots hesitated. Then their commander gave an order. "Continue the mission." That was the moment everything changed. The naval confrontation. At the same time, Iranian missile boats began moving across the water toward the American fleet. From the bridge of the USS Arleigh Burke, radar operators watched the movement. Multiple fast attack craft approaching. The captain remained calm. Warn them. A radio transmission echoed across the open water. Unidentified vessels. You are approaching a United States Navy carrier strike group. Change course immediately. But the Iranian boats continued forward. That was a serious mistake. The air battle. Above the Gulf, the skies suddenly filled with tension. American fighters locked onto the approaching aircraft. Missile systems activated. One Iranian pilot tried to break formation and dive lower toward the water. But the American aircraft were faster. Much faster. Fox 2. A missile streaked through the sky. Seconds later, the first Iranian aircraft was forced to retreat. The remaining pilots quickly realized the mission had failed. They turned back toward their airspace. The naval standoff. Down on the water, Iranian attack boats suddenly found themselves facing a wall of advanced destroyers. The American ships had already locked their weapons. Even from miles away, the power difference was obvious. The Iranian commanders quickly understood the situation. Continuing forward would mean disaster. One by one, the boats slowed down. Then they turned back. The confrontation ended without a shot fired at sea. Back in the command center. Inside the U.S. command center, the tension slowly faded. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Looks like they're retreating. Colonel Walker nodded. They tested the shield. He paused for a moment. And they learned something. Daniel looked up. What's that, sir? Walker gave a small smile. That breaking it is a lot harder than they thought. Final narration. As the sun set over the Gulf later that evening, the skies were quiet again. Commercial aircraft returned to their normal routes. Ships continued crossing the water peacefully. But deep inside military command centers across the region, analysts remained alert. Because in a world where technology, strategy, and power constantly evolve, the next test could come at any time. And when it does, the defense shield will be ready.